Assalamu alaikum, y'all. Peanut Q Public here today to tell y'all how I make my favorite breakfast: hash browns, scrambled eggs, and turkey bacon. The ingredients you will need will be found in the thumbnail, but I'm gonna go ahead and flip it around again so y'all can see what I got going here. This breakfast is for 2 people, so I got 2 potatoes, 4 eggs, and a total of 6 slices of turkey bacon. He likes 2, I like 4, and he gets more of the eggs, so it works out. So the first thing we're going to do, I already did, is wash your potatoes. Of course, you do this with cold water so that you don't begin the cooking process and the chemical reaction that takes place when you cook potatoes. So once you get them washed, we're going to partially peel them. I prefer the kind of peeler that doesn't swivel, but do what we can with what we got. So when we partially peel our potatoes, what we look for first is puckering, wrinkles, bruises, weird spots, cuts, and then we go ahead and peel that. See, you got this weird black stuff. That's why you go for the weird looking spots when you're peeling. And then just keep peeling until you get rid of the weird spots. Move on to your next weird spot. Got some old looking skin here. You can see underneath the weird looking skin is these brownish gray spots. Those would probably taste weird, so we're going to get rid of them, and the eyes and the ends. Takes care of all the weird spots. We are going to keep some of the peel because it gives a good flavor, but you don't need much. Weird spots on this one. And another thing I do if I don't see weird spots is I just do these stripes and look for the weird spots underneath. Alright, and there's our partially peeled potatoes. And voila, shredded potatoes. Clean off your thing. You want to get as many of the potato shreds off as possible, but you're not going to rinse it off yet, because my potatoes are heavy on the starch. And once I put these into the pan, I actually rinse the starch off with water and put that in the pan as well. Alright, now it is time to turn on the pan. We're going to use a low to medium low heat because we want to have these have a nice chance to cook all the way through. If you use a higher heat, you're going to get a nice browning on the outside, and then your inside's going to be raw and crunchy. And who likes crunchy hash browns? They're supposed to be bad for you. They're supposed to be greasy, and you got to cook them all the way for that. So on my stove, that's going to be a 4.5-ish, maybe a little under 4.5, because, well, frankly, it's broken. If you have your own home, or hopefully you don't have someone who takes tips from Jared Kushner on how to be a landlord, then you might actually have a working stove, so you might be able to crank it up to 5. I don't know. I would mess around with it first if I was you. But we're going to get our pan nice and hot, and while it's heating up, we get our butter, or butter substitute, or oil. I prefer butter because, of course I do. It's delicious. And then make sure you actually turn on the right burner, not the front burner. For 2 potatoes, we're probably going to need about maybe 3 tablespoons. 3 tablespoons. And then we're going to set that piece aside for our eggs. So, butter in the pan. You'll know it's time to put your hash browns in, because you will see all your butter melted and the edge is going to start to get just a little bit brown. So we're going to leave that sitting there and move on to the next step. Alright, now it is time to start on our eggs. I can't really take credit for the amazing way that I learned to cook these eggs. I'd say it's a combination between a video Gordon Ramsay did and a video done by this really awesome guy who runs a breakfast sandwich place in New York City called Eggslut. So when I'm making these for people, I always say, hey y'all, I'm making some slutty eggs. And that's the only acceptable time as far as I'm concerned to say slutty. So what we do with these eggs is we start off with butter. See, I cut it up into small pieces, and now we're going to put it in the freezer. And it's just going to chill in the freezer until we're actually ready to do our eggs, and that's going to happen pretty much at the end of things. But if we get that butter nice and cold, it will help the cooking process with the eggs and make them far more delicious, moist, and flavorful. As you can see, the butter is still melting and still not brown on the edge there, so we're going to start on our eggs. We're using 4 eggs, and we're going to put them in this mug until they're ready to go. Now, to avoid shells in your eggs, you want to crack them on something else and then put them in. Do a better job of it than me, of course, but there you go. All your eggs go in there. Alright, eggs are all cracked, butter is almost there, and we're going to take our eggs and put them in the fridge until we're ready for them. Alright, our butter is almost where we need it to be, so today we're going to do a thing that I usually forget to do, which makes these hash browns extra amazing and delicious. We're going to take the pepper that we would normally put on it, that is Chipotle, chili, and black pepper, as well as some Tabasco, and we're going to put it directly into the pan, into that butter, and we're going to infuse the butter with the flavor of the peppers. So when you do this, you actually end up with slightly spicier hash browns with less pepper. Whew! And I'm gonna warn y'all, when you put that pepper in that oil, it's like pepper spraying yourself in the face. It's swirl it around. Got it nice and incorporated. Now we can go ahead and add in our potatoes, which have gotten a little bit red at this point, but it's okay. Alright, now that we got our hash browns in the pan, we're going to try and get them flattened out a little. Shape them up around the outside so that all of your little potato pieces cook as one cohesive dish rather than a billion little teeny tiny shreds of potatoes. Unless you enjoy scattered hash browns, in which case you're going to do this entire process very different. Maybe one day I'll show you how I make scattered hash browns. Okay, so now we got them shaped. We're going to throw on all of our non-pepper spices, starting with Parmesan cheese. Don't go overboard because you'll get weird little crunchy cheese bits. Onion powder. Garlic powder. A little bit of dill weed. And this is not what the bottle says. It is Hidden Valley Ranch dip mix poured into a seasoning jar. Those are, well, sorry, and also salt. Those are the spices we'll be using. And now we're going to go over to the sink, get some hot water running. And we've been doing stuff, so it's already nice and hot. Turn it down to just past a drip. And then we're going to get the plate that we that we shredded the potatoes in, and the potato grater. And then we're going to rinse them off. Get as much of this starch as we can pulled onto this plate and collect it. Get the inside. Alright, and we're going to properly rinse that here in a second because it's a lot easier to wash it if you rinse it first. Now that we've got our starch water, come back over here to the pan, swirl your plate around a little, and dump it onto the part without potato so that you don't compromise your spice coverage. Now, as you can see, that water is now running into the uneven middle. By the way, if you do have a proper stove that's level, it may actually help you to unlevel your pan. I've gotten to a point with this broken ass stove where I have exploited the broken parts of it to make my food better. So now that our water's in there, I'm gonna need to get a pot holder to pick up the pan so that I can slide the liquid underneath our hash brown patty. Alright, we're going to set it down when it's back in the low spot and then cover it up with the plate that we used to shred initially. This serves a double purpose of getting more of that starch water into the potatoes, as well as trapping in that moisture, so we actually get cooked hash browns rather than hard, crunchy potato flakes. Alright, so it's been about 15-20 minutes, and we are checking out the other side of our hash brown. Looks fantastic, so it's time to flip. Alright, if you can flip it like this, bam, it's flipped. Now, if you do have a hard time flipping it like that, it may be because it's not done yet. That crispness of the bottom here, might be able to hear it. That crispness will help it to flip all in one piece. But if you still have problems, even though it's done, you can put your plate back over it, upside down. Get your handy dandy glove, and then flip the hash browns onto the plate, and then flip them that way by picking up the plate, sliding them off back into the pan with the other side. But we didn't have to do that today, just letting y'all know in case you need it in the future. And since we've flipped it, we're going to go ahead and put our salt on this side. Doesn't really need the rest of those spices because that other side got them just fine. But we are going to need salt. So now we're going to put the plate back on and continue to cook on this side for about 10 or 15 minutes or so, or until that other side looks as beautiful as that one. See you then. Alright, time to crank this tutorial up to 11. So you can see the hash browns are done. So we're going to take them off, put them on our original plate, and then put the other plate over the top so that they don't get cold. Cranking our heat up to 8. Probably would be high if it weren't for slumlords. But add a little bit of oil, cook this turkey bacon. Alright, and by the time we start getting our meat actually in the pan, it should be plenty hot. Because of size, we're going to do these 3 at a time. Get them on in there. Slide it over. And repeat. Notice the pan is nice and hot by the time it actually makes it in there. So it's sizzling from the get. And because these are my pieces of bacon, they will be getting some salt. Alright, what we're waiting for is these bubbles to be just about everywhere. I'm going to make sure that that happens properly. I'm going to be turning this pan around, moving that oil around. And as you can see, those bubbles are becoming much more evenly distributed. Woo! Alright, and we're about to flip. Bam! Look at that beautiful goldeny brown color. Now we're waiting for the other side to look like that. It doesn't take long, so we're going to open up this plate. Woo! Got out of control there. But it's pretty much time, so I'm going to pull it. Do the same with the other bacon. Alright, time to make our slutty eggs. As you remember, we put our butter in the freezer and our eggs in the fridge, not stirred. And put our very cold butter into our eggs. And our pan is still hot from making our bacon, but we went ahead and cleaned it out because all we need is this butter. turn this eye off. It'll still be as hot as we need it, and our pan is still hot. So now we pour the eggs in and immediately start stirring. So here we go. So you may remember we did not break the yolks beforehand because they're all going to get broken during this process. We're stirring them as fast as we can. I'm going to reiterate, there's no milk in these eggs, there's no water in these eggs, there's no seasoning in these eggs, because all of those things are going to mess with the chemical process that happens when you're making scrambled eggs. Alright, so now that we've got most of this all incorporated and unstuck, I'm going to go back on the eye, keep stirring. Notice that butter is melting, but it's melting slowly throughout the cooking process, as opposed to all at once in the beginning and burning. Alright, it's not quite cooking as much, so we're going to turn it on high again for just a second. And even though we're not actually seeing any change in the eggs, we're going to go ahead and turn the heat off and continue stirring. Even though we don't see it, that heat happened, and it is cooking. Alright, so now that our eggs look like they're almost done, we're pulling them off and adding our salt and pepper. If you're really cool, you do like Julius from Malcolm in the Middle, and you throw in just a touch of basil, and that does wonderful things to your eggs. You're seasoned, you stir, and you serve. Hope y'all enjoy. Alright, so after probably about an hour, you now have your hash browns, eggs, and turkey bacon ready to go. I hope y'all enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope if you try my hash browns that you will enjoy them just as much. Thank you, and salam alaikum, y'all.